Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Hope you had a great break. Ready to be back and be back to work. As you guys know, I'm in Colorado this week until Friday. I'll be back Friday. You should be working on your test corrections. Maybe some of you already have them done for the test that you got back right before break. If you weren't here, it should get passed back. I have a pile of papers ready to pass back for each class, so you should be able to get it back. Remember, on your test corrections, you do have to rework any of the problems that you missed. You need to explain what your error is, and if you want to retake that test, you can retake it after I come back. So all of the stuff that we worked on that test was things that were kind of the nuts and bolts. How do I solve a rational equation? How do I graph a rational equation? Today we're going to work on kind of how do I use all that information to actually make decisions and do something worthwhile and useful with all this math knowledge that we have. So before we left, I want to talk about a little bit about kind of give you some hints and starting points since I'm not there to answer questions. Some of this I gave to you right before break, but I'm not sure that you'll remember after a week and a half off. I'm not sure that I would have. So the example that I did before we left was about a car. So we talked about a little bit in most classes about the total cost of a car. So if I buy a car, I'm going to have to spend some money to start with, right? It's going to maybe cost me $15,000 for my car. But then if I keep this car for, say, 5 years, maybe I'm going to spend $1,000 in gas a year. Right? And then maybe I need some tires for it at some point along the line. So if I add all that together, that will be my total cost of the car. So one of the things that the problems ask you for is to consider the annual cost of the car. So if you think about the total cost of the car, if I wanted to know how much that costs me per year, because that's what annual cost means, is per year, I could just take that total cost and, see if this is going to work right. Nope. Take that total cost and divide by the number of years. So annual cost then is going to be that expression divided by 5. It's an ugly looking 5. Okay, so, but what if I don't know how many years I want to keep it? Maybe I want to use all these equations and these graphs to try to decide what's a good amount of time for me to keep that car. Maybe I want to use that kind of as my variable. So I could write my total cost as $15,000. Whoops, 15,000 plus 1,000 times X, because that would be the number of years that I want to keep this car, plus my 500 for my oil changes, or not 500 for 500 for my tires. Now, if I want to turn that into an annual cost, maybe an annual cost would be how much per year. So I could take my $15,000 plus 1,000x plus 500 and take that whole amount and divide it by x. Now, if we look at the graph of this expression, why isn't that going right? If we look at the graph of that expression, we can then try to make some decisions about, okay, well, what do the asymptotes mean? How long does it make sense to keep that car for? And what can we do with it? So hopefully that'll give you some ideas of how to look at some of these problems. This first one, actually, once we divide it by 5, it then becomes annual cost. Right? It started out total cost, but once we put the divide by 5 in there, that it became the annual cost. So please work through the problems on there. Really think about what it means. With anything you don't finish is homework tonight. Tomorrow we will work on rational equations and kind of what the rational equations mean. I will post solutions to things, but also know that some of this will be on your next test, so that if you just sit there and copy down all the solutions and don't really understand what you're doing, you're not going to be doing yourself any favors. So hope you have a great week. Hope today goes well and you can kind of look at the graphs and kind of get some meaning back behind the equations. And I will talk to you again tomorrow.